It's time for another Anker product review. I'm not sponsored. I'm just a loyal customer, been buying their stuff forever. I've come to trust their name. They are the number one name in chargers and charging accessories. And today we're going to be checking out a combination power bank with a wireless charger that also serves as a desktop charger. It's got some impressive specs, so we're going to check it out, test it out. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery. Today we're checking out this Anker 200 watt power bank. That's right, I said 200 watts. It can output 200 watts on these USB-C ports. It's 20,000 milliamp hours in capacity, and it charges wirelessly on this little desktop charger thing, which also has USB ports in the back that can charge other things as well. This is going to be an amazing portable battery solution for any kind of laptop that has USB-C power delivery inputs, like your MacBook Pros and other laptops. Just carry this thing in your bag, never have to worry about plugging in on the go. So let's check this thing out. Like I said, 2 USB-C and 1 USB-A ports on the battery bank itself. 200 watts total output. I think you're going to be able to get 100 watts out of 2 different USB-C ports. It charges wirelessly with some pogo pins at 100 watts. So it is going to charge up fast once you get it back to the docking station, if you will. And when it's not on the docking station, like I said, we've got USB ports on that also that are going to charge things that are on your desk. So super cool. Lots of information on the box here as far as all the USB outputs and inputs and what the specs of the desktop charger is itself. But we'll go through those as we test this thing out. Let's go ahead and open this box up and see what's inside. Alright, so inside the box we got the power bank itself, of course. We got the charging base. We've got a USB-C to USB-C cable. This looks like just a short one, maybe 3 feet, 2 feet. Just enough to power some device close to this. And we've got, of course, the AC cable back here for the charging base. Came in a nice little carry pouch. And we got some quick start guides here. And then we got these little dudes, which are little adhesive strips here. It says, please use the adhesive tape to attach the charging base to your table. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. This thing's, it's got some heft to it. It's pretty heavy. It's got some nice rubber feet on it. It's not going to slide around much. But then once I noticed that these pogo pins here are magnetic, and that's a pretty strong mount there, you would be picking this thing up off the desk if you didn't have something holding it down. I think I'm going to forego the tape and just kind of use my finger every time I pick it up. Just kind of brace this guy here with the finger, or just kind of crack it backwards. But yeah, it's a nice strong connection, and I'm always impressed with Anker's build quality. Like, the build quality on this thing is amazing. The finish on the power bank itself is similar to the finish on this desktop charger back here, the 250 watt charger. And it's just, like I said, just high quality. Like, I've got some big battery banks like this that I've bought from Amazon and from Temu and test them out, and sometimes they just have that hollow plasticky feel. These things, the charging base itself, like, it is solid. So far so good. Let's go ahead and get this thing plugged into the wall. I'll get this guy charging up on it, and we'll start taking a look at the screen and some of the controls on it. Alright, so let's check out the battery first. This thing came in the box completely dead, which is a little surprising. Usually they have a pretty decent charge on them before they ship them out, but who knows, maybe it's been sitting in Amazon's warehouse for a while. But I'm going to just hit this button here on the side, and it just tells me at first just a generic what percentage it is charged up. So I did charge it up a little bit, just enough to do this demo. We'll charge it up some more once I set it on the base, and then we'll test out the charging through the USB-C ports. But if I push the button again, I can see the battery health and then how many cycles it's been on. That's pretty cool. I've never seen that on a power bank before. And then it's even got the temperatures of what the battery operating temperatures are. And then push it again. It goes through some settings. I can set the auto screen timeout for different amounts of seconds or minutes. I've seen this on Anker's portable power banks, the bigger ones, like I think it's called the 548 or something that I reviewed a while back. And it's pretty neat. You just hit the button, hold it for a couple seconds, and it will toggle through all the different settings. So we'll go ahead and set that maybe to 5 minutes so it doesn't time out during the review. And then we'll hold that in for a second to lock it in. And then the next one we got is screen brightness, same thing. You can toggle that between high and medium. And then it's back to 7%. So let's go ahead and throw this on the stand. I got the stand plugged in here. I'm just going to set it on these pogo pins here. It locks right into place. And now we get a little bit more information. So let's zoom that in a little bit. Now I've got a very precise amount of battery life here, 7.22%. It's got how many watts it's charging at. It's got how long it's going to take to completely charge at that power level. And ever since I plugged it in, it's been kind of sticking at 70%. I wonder if it's going to stay at 70 to try to ramp up those batteries a little bit before it goes into the full 100 watts. Because it did the same thing when I tested up top here. And we'll look at that in just a second. But really nice. As far as like power banks go, this is kind of the top of the mountain level power bank. Awesome capacity. Neat little stand. You can buy this by itself and you can buy the stand by itself. It's a lot cheaper if you buy them both together, and it's even a lot more cheaper if you get a coupon code or they're running a sale, which Anker is always running a sale on Amazon. I'll drop some links down below. You can check it out. See if it's on sale, see if there's a coupon code. Like I said, just about every holiday and little Amazon sale, they always knock a bunch of money off these things. And if you get it at the combo deal at a good price, this thing is an amazing setup. So the instructions did say, while this thing is charging like this, don't charge anything out of the top. And I guess that's fair enough. You got the USB-C ports on the back here. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. On the back of on the side of the desktop charger, you got a USB-A and 2 USB-Cs here. And basically the rating on these is, the one with the picture of the computer there is 100 watts max. The one right next to it is 30 watts max. And then the USB-A is 18 watts max. So you could have this thing just sitting on your desk, powering up your MacBook, powering up your phone, powering up your tablet, whatever it is. And then when you need to recharge your portable battery, boom, just pop it on there. And I think it's going to share the 100 watts max out of everything. Maybe I'll find a couple things to plug into this to see what level they all kind of even out at. In fact, let me do that now. I'll find something to plug the base into. We'll see how much power out we can get out of that USB-C one, and then we'll throw the battery on top and see what happens. So let me go grab something. I'll be right back. All right, so let me show you what I got set up here. And before we get into the charging base, let me just show you that after this battery here got up above 10%, it looks like now as I charge it, it will actually ramp up to 100 watts. And there we go. We've got it running at 100 watts now, fully charging. So like I thought, it was probably just a matter of what the battery life is. I'm sure when it gets up really close to 100% full, it'll scale that speed down also, just to take it easy on the batteries. So now that we know that this thing will charge up to 100 watts, let's pull that back off again. So we get just the desktop charger here, and I've got the included cable plugged into it. And it's plugged into the 100 watt output. And the cable is nice. It's listed as 140 watt capable max. So that's good. I like when they actually put that on there because I've got a lot of cables that don't have any numbers on them. And I've been slowly labeling them with a Sharpie just so I know which ones will work with which devices. But 140 watts, that's definitely enough for this guy here. So I'm going to plug this into this Anker Solix, which can accept a charge up to 140 watts on one of these USB-C ports here. So we're just going to plug it in and see what it charges at by itself, and then we're going to add the battery on here and see what happens when you have more than one device that's asking for 100 watts. So it didn't take long for the Anker Solix to ramp right up to 96 watts coming in here, so I'm sure this is putting out 100 watts, or at least it thinks it's putting out 100 watts. So now we're going to go ahead and put the battery on top and see what happens. So right away, the Anker Solix is scaled down to 43 watts, and the power bank is charging at 52 watts. So it does a pretty good job at just scaling that 100 watts max out between the two devices. And I use this battery bank here just because it has a nice, easy to read screen that we can see exactly what's going in, both by itself and when it's sharing the power. If you did the same test with a laptop, maybe this was plugged into your laptop and then you plug this in, I'm not sure if the laptop would, announce to you in any way, hey, your charger just changed from a 100 watt charger to a 50 watt charger. But hey, let's grab a MacBook and see what it does. All right, so I've got the desktop charger here plugged right into a MacBook Pro, and this is a 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro, which came originally with an 87 watt charger. So 87 watts would be the ideal charger for it. We're going to go into the About My Mac and go into the system report and then go into power. And it's going to tell us what kind of charger it thinks it has. And if the screen's a little blown out, don't worry, I'll read it to you. But it sees a 100 watt charger. So it sees the AC charger is connected. It has a wattage of 100 watts. So that matches exactly what we've got plugged into it. So here comes the part that I'm not sure what's going to happen. If we take the battery bank now and put it on top of the charger, see what happens. Now to make this work, I'm going to have to exit the screen, go back in because it doesn't live update. But let's go ahead and see what happens. Alright, so the battery is back up to 52 watts. I'm not sure if you can see that. So let's go ahead and come out of the screen here, go back into the system report, and back into power, and see what we see. Okay, now it sees it as a 45 watt charger. So that's exactly what we were seeing. We were seeing, what, like 47 watts going into the Anker Solix battery. So this is not ideal for this laptop, but it will continue to charge it. If you're using this laptop with something heavy, maybe doing some video editing or something, it may be using more power than you're giving it. So the batteries will be depleting as you're using the laptop. But if you just had this, sitting here idle, or maybe the screen is down, maybe it's overnight, or whatever the case is, if there's not a lot of heavy usage, then that 45 watts, it's going to continue to charge up that battery, no problem. But at least it's interesting to know that the laptop did notice the change in power from the supply. So I'm happy with the desktop charger portion of this. It works great. It charges the battery at full speed. It charges external devices at full speed. It shares the power when it needs to. So let's go ahead and test out the battery bank here. Since it's capable of 200 watts out, we'll find a couple things to plug into it and see what happens. Alright, so to test out the battery bank, I'm going to plug it into two different devices and see how it performs. I did charge it up to about 60%, so it's got plenty of life in it. And I'm going to be using the included cable that came with it. And then I've got another Anker cable here. This one is capable of 240 watts. So we'll use this to hook up both the Anker Solix battery bank and the MacBook Pro. So if I'm reading the specs right, this thing's supposed to deliver 100 watts per USB-C port. So let's go ahead and plug in one device here and start up the Anker Solix. And right away the Anker is seeing 97 watts coming in. It looks like we got 100 watts coming out. So far so good. We're halfway there. Let's go ahead and take the second cable here, plug that in, and I will plug that into this MacBook Pro. Now the MacBook's not going to pull 100 watts from it, but we're going to check a couple things. We're going to check to see how much the Anker is providing it, and then we're going to check to see again in the system report what kind of charger it thinks it's hooked up to. So the Anker Solix is still sitting at 97 watts. It shows USB-C 1 is putting out 22.6 watts, and that's climbing up. USB-C 2 is still putting out that 100 watts. So let's let this USB-C 1 climb up. And the usage that it's pulling out of here is going to be depending on what this laptop wants. How much activity it's got on it, what the battery life is, all that good stuff. So let's go into System Report and at least see what kind of charger it thinks it's plugged into. So scrolling down to power and looking at the AC charger, it sees that it is a 100 watt charger. And it has ramped up to about 50 something watts coming out of here. Still holding strong at 97 watts going into the battery bank in the back. So this little tiny thing here is capable of hooking up to two 100 watt devices. In fact, let's go ahead and pull the plug on the MacBook, throw it into here because this guy's allowed to charge into both of these USB-C ports. So let's disconnect this guy, plug him into here. And here we run into our first little problem, and that is that it seems that both of these ports here are bidirectional, both of these ports here are bidirectional, so it's actually charging from the battery bank into the Anker Solix, and it's charging from the Anker Solix into the battery bank. So that is not ideal, and that's one of the downsides of not being able to tell your ports when they're bidirectional which one you want. I love the fact that this particular battery bank here has a dedicated output port, but as far as the two input ports here, you can't tell them which way to go. So I was hoping to take 200 watts from here and put it into the larger Anker Solix, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. In fact, even after I unplugged the second cable, this thing still thinks that it's in charging mode, and it is charging 97 watts out of here back into here, which is fine because we did want to test the charging capacity of this port anyways. And every time you make a connection or disconnection from USB-C ports, they do renegotiate, so it actually looks like, yes, this thing, the smaller battery bank is charging the larger one again. Let me plug it in one more time and see if I can get it to force to output both at the same time into this larger battery. And no, it looks like it just reverted to just one port charging at 100 watts. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get this to work as I planned. And even just by unplugging that second cable, it has reverted this back to charging again. So I wish there was some software control to control the ports to be either outputs or inputs. I've had some cheaper devices that actually had a menu button built onto the device that allowed you to force the ports to be either inputs or outputs. So Anker, if you're listening, on a device like this, that would be a great feature. Maybe a firmware upgrade to allow you to use this button over here to go through the menu and toggle the states of the ports as inputs or outputs. But I'm happy that the first test that I did, both charging the large battery and the laptop at the same time, worked as expected. Alright, time to wrap this video up with some final thoughts. I've got all the other toys out of the way, back to just what comes in the box. And one last thing I want to mention is when I had this thing charging on the stand for a long time, when I wanted to get it from its original state of just a couple percent up to that 60% so that I could start testing the output, I will mention that the output or the charging speed went from 100 watts down to like 50 or so watts at some point, and I'm guessing that it was just charging so long that it got warm, the batteries got warm, and it slowed down the process to kind of save those batteries. I took it off the charger for a while, put it back on, and now it's charging at that 100 watts again. If I was smart enough, I would have clicked through the menu and saw what the battery temperature was at the time, but I didn't even think about it. But if it happens again, I'll do that to see if that's something that might be the culprit of slowing the speeding process down. So if you see something like that happen on yours, then just know that it might just be, some protection circuit that's slowing down the charging to protect those batteries and keep them lasting longer. Now, we called this battery here a 20,000 milliamp hour battery, and I really wish that battery banks would stop being called a so-and-so milliamp hour, because really the watt hours is what matters most. The amount of milliamp hours in this thing really depends on the voltage and the current of the charging cells, but the true capacity of it is how many watt hours it can hold. And that's also another important factor. If you're going to take this thing on a flight, it needs to be below 100 watt hours to be cleared by TSA. And this one is. It actually lists on the battery itself on the bottom that it is 72 watt hours. You probably can't see that on the camera, but it's listed right here on this side. So just in case you bring one of these on a flight and you go through the security check and they say, what is the capacity of that battery? You can just point right to it and say 72 watt hours, and they'll wave you right through. So when I do these reviews, I obviously test everything to make sure that they work the way they're supposed to. I go through all the specs and all the features, but it's even just as important to talk about use cases. For this particular combo, I talked about the use case of having this maybe on your desk, charging your laptop as a charger itself, and then charging the battery when you need to. That's really the most perfect use case for it, and it's probably what it's designed to be for. You could just as easily have a power bank this big by itself with another type of charger, maybe like this desktop charger over here, or a wall charger like this that puts out, this one I think is like 65 watts or something. You could just as easily use that to charge one of these battery banks. But having the desktop charger that comes with it that can actually work as a charger when it's not charging this, I think that's pretty cool. So that is a perfect use case. As far as the battery bank itself, we talked about taking on a flight, keeping all your electronics charged on a long flight, whether it's your phone or your tablet or a portable gaming device like a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck. That's another perfect use case for it. You could have it as an everyday device where you just charge this thing on your desk while you're at work and then take it with you when you go home, use it in the car, use it at night. I usually have a device like this sitting at my couch because my couch has the little built-in USB chargers, but they're very low wattage. So I usually have something like this to charge up my Steam Deck. That way I can play some games at night while I'm watching TV, and I don't have to worry about the Steam Deck running out of battery. I just keep it topped off with a portable battery bank like this, and this one would be perfect for that. But overall, I'm really impressed. Like I said, the build quality is always top notch on these Anker products. The capacity is awesome. The ability to have 200 watts coming out of this thing is pretty impressive. Now, obviously, if you have 200 watts coming out of this, it's going to use the battery twice as quick. But with a 100-watt charger, you can charge it up pretty darn fast. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope I answered all your questions. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any questions, do throw those down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Go ahead and check out the rest of the channel while you're here. Got lots of reviews on different type of power banks, like those big Anker Solix power banks, solar generators, chargers. I just did a review on the Anker desktop chargers, all kinds of stuff. And then basically anything else geeky, it's on the channel too. That's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you as always for watching. And until next time, peace out and geek out.